Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast powered by Cineman. I'm Ewan Graff, and as always, I'm joined by the frazzled Lachlan Teely.
Who's
You do
lost
these
his
intros way
camera
too
and
harsh,
cannot see
man.
where he's going. On episode 153, Ewan thirst over Paul Mescal in the all-new trailer for All of Us Strangers. And I thirst over Nicolas Cage in his latest trailer, Dream Scenario.
I hope it didn't get you any wet dreams or something like that. But I caught the last season of Sex Education, watched Love at First Sight on Netflix, Flora and Son on Apple TV Plus, A Million Miles Away on Prime Video, and both Landscape with Invisible Hand and Shortcomings on VOD. And I also caught up with Ahsoka over on Disney Plus. So lots to be talking about in what I've been watching this week, or what we've been watching. I don't know about you, Lachlan. We'll see.
Finally, Ewan and I caught up on a Ao Edobari double feature, Bottoms, and Theatre Camp. That is the 10th time I've tried this intro, and I have butchered the name every single time, but I feel like that is the closest, and we're going to stick with that one.
Adebari. But you were close. You were pretty close. And I think, I don't know, I was also closer. Doesn't matter. Let's key up the intro and get into the show.
We are
Obviously,
professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there. Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is gonna
me a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
I don't know if anyone else does it though, but
Yeah, look, I feel like once you get to first name basis, and we can do that virtually without ever having talked to her or met her, we'll just like go with AO and.
But what I do is I go to YouTube and I watch like 4 or 5 different interviews and get the interviewer to like say their name, and I'll go,
Yeah.
okay, that's how I gotta say their name, and then you'll find out that you've actually been pronouncing their name wrong this entire time. And it's like, there's a couple of people out there who are like, you just say my name wrong.
Jake
and I'm wrong
Gyllenhaal,
with it."
for example. People are like, yeah, it's Gyllenhaal.
His
It's
name's
actually,
Sam. Yeah.
It's John Smith. No,
John
I
Smith.
think it's Gyllenhaal or something like that. in
Gyllenhaal.
Swedish, which like, ultimately it doesn't matter here. But
Or like people
a
say
Devery. I feel like
William
it's not that-
Defoe, and it's not William, it's Willem.
Willem, yeah, it's Willem.
Yeah.
Willem Wonte. Anyways, I also wanted to mention this, not in like at the top of the show, but I did watch The Creator, and I think by the time this episode comes out, the embargo will have dropped, so we'll be talking about that as well later on, just briefly. But we will be talking about that more extensively once Lachlan has seen it and it's fully out for everyone next week. But in the meantime, there were some news items, and well, not really news items, there were a couple of trailers that I want to talk about. Before that, the single news item that we got this week is that the WGA and the AMPTP are meeting again, and they have been meeting, I think, since Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and today on Sunday. They're still on a meeting over the weekend, putting those producers to work, man. Wow, crazy stuff. Maybe they can finally agree and actually pay their writers. We'll see. Hopefully they reach an agreement. It would be a great first step in concluding these strikes and getting the industry back on board. But we'll keep you posted on that once we do get actual news on it and not just them meeting. But
It's wild that every single news segment for the past like 3 months has not been about, like, it used to be, hey, look, here's a rumor about who's being cast in this role and there's a production happening. And now it's literally just, hey, there is the WGA and the AMPTP. They're having a meeting, and they've had another meeting, and it's getting nowhere. But finally, we should get
AI thinks we've
somewhere,
been
and-
talking about bowling for months now.
Oh,
Like, what
God.
about all of these strikes, man? Spare me. But yeah. All of Us Strangers. First trailer, Paul Mescal looking mighty fine in this movie that's been getting like so much praise so far from the limited run it's had at festivals. Lachlan, what did you think of the trailer? You already know that I'm in, but what about you?
I remember seeing it sort of announced, like a poster reveal, and it's the one that's on Letterboxd, and I wish listed it ages ago to watch it. And now the trailer's come out, and I wish I could. Well, actually, I did. I pressed unwatch list and add it back to my watch list, just so it's at the top. So I remember to watch it, and
Yeah.
I'm super excited. It looks awesome.
Looks really cool.
awesome.
I don't know. We don't have much else to add to that. Great actors in it, and I mean, with the rave that it's gotten so far, I assume has a substantial plot chemistry between the two as well, which I'll eat that up any day of the week. Speaking of eating up shit, there was also I don't know if that's a horrible transition, but Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had
That's
a new
where you're going
trailer,
with it.
and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe even months ago, when they had the first trailer out, the first teaser out, and I kind of was reluctant to say that this is something that I'm excited to watch. It looked like very surface level, very like just cosplaying edginess for current day teenagers. Again, like less than the first trilogy was. But looking at this, it looks like there's a ton of action. There's gonna be a whole bunch going on. I'm kind of interested in this movie now after seeing the trailer. Like, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I don't care for Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I'm full.
Fair. Okay. So something you do care about is Dream Scenario with Nick Cage,
Yes!
the A24 movie,
Yes!
where he's appearing in a bunch of people's dreams and becomes literally overnight, a sensation. I mean, this film also premiered already at TIFF. I'll be watching this in 4 days from now, 2 days when you're probably watching this. It's the opening film at the Zurich Film Festival. I'm very excited to see it. Lachlan, what did you make of the trailer? Any thoughts? Yeah.
I got super hyped.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw Nicolas Cage in the getup, I was
Mhm.
hooked in. And then when the film's trailer told me where the story was going, I was in.
Mhm,
Locked me
mhm.
in. I want this to be my new favorite film of the year. um, this film looks awesome.
Yeah, it's got an interesting premise. I don't want to talk about it too much because there's been obviously a bunch of people who've seen it at TIFF, and then you kind of already know like what the strengths and what the weaknesses of the film are. I don't want to go over them, but I'll just say like the premise of this seems really good, and it's what it's delivering on. And I'm keen. Someone randomly popping up in your dream and just like passively being there feels like this role was made for Nick Cage. It's perfect. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll link the trailers below if you want to catch the full ones yourself. And then let's move on to a discussion time of the week. And Lachlan, last week we talked about the state of the animation genre. And this week I want to talk about the comedy genre. We're talking about 2 comedies today, releasing back to back. There's been a drought for comedy films for a while. Now we've been talking about this, that mid-budget comedy films don't really get made anymore. Now we got 2 this week. So what do you think about the state of comedy overall at this current state in fall of 2023?
I think the issue is that comedy is interwoven into too many aspects of pop culture these days.
Yep.
I feel like people, or at least characters, are quippy, funny. They have their own quirks that are meant to
Mhm.
be there for comedic value. And the easiest example, I've given this example before, is like the star lordification of characters. They need to be this better than life, takes the piss out of everything type of character.
Yeah.
And that, because of that style of character being interwoven into a lot of serious dramas and really serious shows, then you kind of don't get comedies because
Mhm.
there are the larger in life characters. And the thing is,
Yeah.
comedy is obviously about taking a particular idea and pushing it a bit further, right?
Yeah.
And it's why I like one of these movies more than the other, because one of them takes an idea and they go, how far can we go with this concept? And then the other one is kind of a bit more kept within a pen as an idea. They don't really push the boundaries of the comedy as much.
Yeah. I'm so curious which one. I'm not asking you yet. I'm so curious because I feel like there's an argument for both of them to be made for what you just said. I'm not entirely sure, but from what I could gather, I think that what makes comedy strong and what has been lessened is the kind of confidence to stay within the characters, even if they're like senseless, without poking, like acknowledging that it's ridiculous. And that's kind of
Mm.
what's lessening the thing. That's what I've heard. Like, I haven't watched it yet, but about like the One Piece live action adaptation, that it doesn't really point out how weird shit is. A lot of comedies do that and kind of take away from that. Like, I don't know, the most recent Ant-Man movie where like there's MODOK or whatever, and he looks really ugly and stretched faced and whatever, and the whole comedy bit is pointing out how weird he looks, and that's the comedy, not just that it's within this universe. Like that lessons, like you said, the Marvel vacation, everyone has to be quippy, everyone has to, yeah, be quick with it. And sometimes the comedy, I feel like, comes from the awkwardness and just the chemistry that two people have, which later on we'll talk about this. But in one of the films we talk about, there's a great chemistry between two people that I can really feel. And I think that's what's not really been missing, but because we are not really giving them enough place to just banter without being like, just let's just make fun of something that's in front of us. Like it's very obvious humor that is happening in most genres, and when it's pure comedy, I think when it can derail into more ridiculous stuff, then you get the best parts. And I feel like that's still happening. I don't think like comedy is completely dead. It's just like you said, it's just kind of invaded pretty much every other genre to make even the hard-hitting stuff a bit more lighthearted, not in a realistic sense, you know, how real life is, and you poke fun at something, but ultimately make like most movies kind of, it always needs something to balance it out, and I don't think everything needs that.
I think that comedy has often evolved,
Yeah.
and currently it's in a state where it doesn't really know where it can go.
Identity crisis.
And I think it's becoming from a place where comedy in the past has often been offensive, and we've come
Right.
to a place in the world where we don't want to offend. We want people to have a good time, but we don't want to offend. And I do think that there are some comedies in the past that do take some aspects of people's lives and pokes fun of it. If you kind of look at, you know, some of the like the all-time biggest comedies, you know, I think for me the first one would come up would be like the Monty Python skits.
Yeah,
It's
like
the
Airplane.
extremities, right? But there's a great point to be made where Monty Python and the Holy Grail pokes fun at religion, or at least Christianity. And I know there's like there's a whole debate I have seen and read where they're like, it's not actually poking fun, it's just they're taking the idea of it and making it ridiculous. It's not even meant to be like the same figure, but it's taking an aspect and stretching it out. But then there's also comedies that ends up just being like quippiness, right? Where it's just like the way things are said and the way things are presented to you. I think Young Frankenstein is a great example with Gene Wilder. But I mean, it's a Mel Brooks film, but Gene Wilder is incredible at his comedy. He's just always great with timing and presenting, and it's his body that brings it up. And it's the same with like a young Jim Carrey, right? Where he was very
physical
with his comedy, and then like as he's gotten later on, he's done more serious roles, and then he's gone less and less into comedy. But he was a physical comedy guy, and again, it just depends on where comedy is going and what it kind of wants to do, because the style of comedy that we're currently in, you know, comedy is now stand up. That's what comedy is. Stand up has existed, but comedy right now is primarily just stand up.
Yeah, I feel like stand up hasn't really changed that much, at least from someone who's not like going to live stuff or whatever, who just sees the tapings. I don't think it has changed in its approach, other than, I guess, like you said, some themes becoming a bit more taboo. But what I like is when the comedy comes from within, like from theater camp. It comes within, poking fun at it. It feels authentic in parts as well. Same with something like Bros, which didn't do well at all, which I found to be like really charming and actually like really funny as well. Where like that's not an issue to like, it's not like it's a marginalized group and there's no comedy in there because, oh no, we can't talk about it. It's just that when it comes from an authentic place for people whose voice comes from within, it can actually be like really funny. And I feel like we do have an issue as a collective oh God, society at this, where like we're looking at everything through the lens of, is it correct? And we don't always know if it is or not, and we're just being cautionary. And then there's a growing movement on the other side that is just like, I will not be held back, this is all restrictive, the oppressive left or whatever. And I feel like it comes from like the overcorrection that you're doing. It's on both sides, these kind of overcorrection, and what is lost in between is the comedic value that you could have for actually like well-written comedy. Not to say that we need to like we are missing like I don't know, homophobic and transphobic humor. That at all is something we don't really need to go back to at all. We don't need to see that ever again. It's an ongoing process, and I don't know if it's always going forward in a sense where it's like there's progress made for something better. I feel like we have currently been in a state for the last 2 or 3 years where I feel like it's getting worse. The dialogue of comedy, of acceptance, of all of that is like not really in a great place. So when comedies like this shine through, I feel like I'm quite happy that they are able to make it. Although when we are looking closer at them, they're not really doing too hot at the box office, which has to do with release date as well, but we'll get into that later on. But yeah, anything else you wanna bring up for comedy? No?
No,
All right.
comedy is quite interesting, but I have nothing else.
All right. So that's that for discussion time. So let's get to what we've been watching, Lachlan. What have you been up to this week?
Absolutely bugger all, mate. Absolutely
Mhm.
bugger all. I watched Ahsoka episode 6, and it was the wildest, like, 45 minutes of my entire life.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
believe that. I mean, I'm caught up as well now,
Uh,
and
I'm so glad you caught
yeah.
up.
hmm
Have you enjoyed it? You've enjoyed it, right? You text me. You
So
said you enjoyed
I
it, so
I
I'm,
do
I'm
have a
leaving it. You
a
text me and said you enjoyed
quote
it.
for it. I did tell you that I liked it. I think the show has been the best that Star Wars had to offer in the last 40 years since Return of the Jedi. I think it's really good. And
Oh, wait, since Return of the Jedi? Oh, wow.
yeah. Well, yeah, after. I think Return of the Jedi, I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen that one. But that original trilogy, I think it kind of continues on that in a way. Like it's also set after. So you could just like if I would recommend it, I would just go
So,
watch the original trilogy and then watch this, right?
does that mean you don't like the prequel?
I haven't seen them in a long time. I think once they do anything again in that like time sphere, I'll give them a rewatch. I liked the first one, but I wasn't really that into. Wait,
Do
sorry,
you
no, the
like
prequels.
Phantom
I'm about, but
Menace?
I was talking about the sequel series, the prequel series. No, again, I've seen the first one from them, but the other two, it's been a really long time. I'd say like 6 or 7 years since I've seen them. Gotta give them a rewatch, but I've seen scenes again and again. But I think
Sure.
the third
The
one is
reason I
probably the
ask
best
is
one.
that at the start of the episode, there's Huyang and Ahsoka, and they talk about like the books, like book 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah,
and everyone online is assuming that it's referring to the originals being 2, prequels being book 1, and the sequels being book 3,
right.
and they say, and Ahsoka says book 1 being the best, of course, implying that Dave Filoni is saying that the sequels are the best ones.
Right. Oh, the prequels are the best ones. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, the prequels. Forgive me. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, I've been watching the show now as well. I binged it all in one go. I couldn't stop. It was like late at night.
So good, right?
It was really good. It just made me want to watch the Clone Wars and Rebels, like those
Cool.
shows to kind of add the context to that character. I feel like it does work on its own, but you're just always like questioning what's coming next. I feel like the people that pop up, I guess I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. The people that pop up are quite satisfying in what they're given. No complaints on your end. I assume it's also like a faithful and good adaptation of some of the characters that pop up. I
Yeah.
didn't mind one of them, the one that comes later on. I was like, I wasn't sure. I didn't really like that moment. There it was a bit awkward to me, but I don't know. I guess I have to catch up on Rebels
Are
as
you
well.
talking about the catch up moment?
Yeah.
Sure,
That
sure.
I don't know. I wasn't sure on that, but I mean, I'm curious to see. There's 2 more episodes to go, and hopefully they wrap it up nicely. I mean,
You know who thinks about the Roman Empire? Thrawn,
Thrawn definitely.
because
Yeah,
he
he
made all
definitely.
of his fucking troopers look like the Roman Empire.
It's just a great show all around. Go check it out if you've been burned out on Star Wars. It might reignite your love for it. But
Anyway, I'm
other
on a
than that,
sci-fi binge because I'm still playing
yes.
Starfield. I
Ooh,
think
yes.
I'm like almost 50 hours. Hang
Wow.
on, how many hours am I into it? Let me find.
Well,
I
50
think I can find
hours,
out.
the
Yeah.
dark 20 hours that he's been in the ship creator. Just like
40 hours in the ship creator, pretty
tinkering
much.
away.
Man, building ships is so much fun. 42.4 hours, so not 50 yet, but I'm making my way to 50 hours.
Yeah.
It's fun. And other than that, I rewatched episode 6 again of Ahsoka because I loved it that much. It was so much fun. That's all I did this week, other than watching Theater Camp and Bottoms, which we'll be talking about in a second. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Ewan, you watched the entire
look,
theater worth of films this week, I assume.
Yes, we had an initial thing of like me cutting down to a set number of like 3 films I'm talking about. But I do have my notes here, so hopefully I can blast through them, give you some recommendations, some stuff you should stay clear of. Fortunately, this week has been really, or the last 2 weeks have been really strong with streaming releases and VOD releases. There's some great stuff. Sex Education over on Netflix had its last season, season 4. We are in a new school. There's a bunch of, most of the cast returns, a bunch of new characters. I think the show has always been the strongest with the core group. And surprisingly, I think the sex counseling part from Otis has always kind of been the weakest part of the show for me, and especially in this season. It's a bit all over the place, I'd say, but I'm still really liking the storylines for Maeve and Adam and his dad, especially. So if you've liked the show, if you've kind of fallen off from it like Lachlan has in season 1, I think it's worth checking out, but I mean, it does take a while to get into it. It does get messy, and it does have the thing of just being like in its further seasons just as like inclusive as possible, and always has fumbles the bag a bit with too many characters. But that's that. Then also on Netflix, we got Love at First Sight from Vanessa Caswell, who did a Little Women adaptation in 2017. Haven't seen that one. Maya Hawke is in it, by the way. But this is just what the title says. It's one Brit and an American falling in love on a plane, and then they lose each other when they land in London and have to find each other again. It's with Haley Lou Richardson, and I think she's just very fun to see on screen. It's a sweet story. It's very cheesy and predictable, but I liked it. There's a voiceover that makes me want to hit my head against the wall over and over again, because one of the characters is like into numbers, so she keeps bringing up the likelihood and numbers around love. It's a bit annoying, but the rest of it is kind of sweet. So, if you want to have a chill thing to have on in the evening to fall asleep to, Love at First Sight is your pick. Then on Apple TV Plus, we got Flora and Son from John Carney, who did Sing Street. Lachlan, have you seen Sing Street?
No.
It's like one that people are raving about. Like, it's one of their favorite movies of all time. I see it all the time. I think it's a pretty decent film, Sing Street. But Flora and Son is also really good. We got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in here as a charming guitar teacher, and it's about a young mom who struggles in raising her rebel son and starts taking guitar lessons over Zoom. Maybe the music will help them connect all together. It's a very heartfelt Irish drama comedy. It's pretty funny with the dry Irish humor, and I can recommend that one too. Not a lot that I could not recommend this week, but over on Prime Video, A Million Miles Away is I'd say a cheesy real life story about a migrant farm worker who becomes an astronaut for NASA. It's better than Flaming Hot, I'd say, because it's a bit less corporate, and Michael Pena is fine in it as well. It's a very feel good story overall, and it leaves out some of the heavier stuff overall. It tries to stay really light, but I think it's all right. If you're interested in the subject matter, then go give it a try. It's also interesting to read the Wikipedia page about all of that. Then we already talked about Ahsoka. Again, can recommend it. And also over on Disney Plus and on Hulu in the States is No One Will Save You. And this, Lachlan, this is the hit of the week, man. I wasn't expecting this at all to be this good. It comes from Brian Duffield, who did Spontaneous, which was decent. This one is starring Caitlin Dever, and it's about like an alien invasion in her town. She has like trauma because of something she did in the past. Has kind of been alienated, sorry for the pun there, by her town, by her community. And it's a movie where they don't talk. Like, there's no real dialogue. It's just like all tense, just like survival. And it's really sick. I think I can wholeheartedly shout this one out. Go give it a try. If you like horror, if you like sci-fi a bit, it's really well done. I'm looking forward to what he does next. Then, lastly, we do have a couple of things over on VOD. First, we got Strays, the movie that played in theaters a while back from the director of Bob and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. Josh Greenbaum didn't really like that movie. And this one is with dogs with moving mouths that cuss and they hump a bunch of stuff. And that's the core of the humor. It's also, yeah, that's it. It's very crass. It's very sausage party esque. And it's like, I don't know. It's also about abusive relationships with like the dog owner. That part is quite funny, and it's just very crass. If you're into that type of humor, you might like it. I thought it was lacking any sort of like actual funny puns. It gave the dogs a bunch of humor that would only be like funny to humans, and I would like for them to be a bit more authentically dog made. I want this to be a dog movie, and it wasn't really that much. But I'm also not a dog person, so you shouldn't really trust what I'm saying here. Then, a couple more things. I'm almost done. Shortcomings, Randall Park's feature debut about an unlikable guy who's just kind of a dick and is on a sort of self-discovery journey. He's a theater owner. He's pretentious, and he's being broken up with by his girlfriend that is moving from LA to New York. It's also a comedy, but I think it's more on the dramatic side where it's interesting to follow this guy who's just kind of a dick. And yeah, it's kind of meta where it calls out like other movies because he's like into movies and stuff. So it's very much like that first directing debut for an actor type-ish of story, but it's fairly well done. Someone who you really like from After Yang, Lachlan, Justin H. Ming is the lead role, and he kills it. He's great in it. Then Landscape with Invisible Hand from Corey Finley, Bad Education, Thoroughbreds director, has a new one here with also aliens landing on Earth and kind of ordering humans around and basically taking all their jobs away. And this poverty that is like just affecting the widespread community, and there's nothing they can really do about it. And the creatures are really like they got like this thing with their hands that they like make this weird noise, and that's how they communicate. It's quite funny. I think it loses itself a bit in the bit and in the world building. The world building isn't like the greatest, but overall I think it's a recommendation on my end as well. And then lastly, The Creator, we'll talk about it next week. Not on VOD yet, but it's from Gareth Edwards, who did parts, I guess, the beginning stages of Rogue One and Godzilla 2014. And I found a quote where one of his editors was talking about Rogue One and the unique approach he had with basically assembling a cut from like hundreds of movies, like Aliens and War Games is what it's named, to kind of put together what the movie is going to be like. The Creator is very much like that. Like it's got a lot of influences from other movies, and you can really feel that. Like it's got war film stuff, like Vietnam War stuff, District 9. There's a bit of Blade Runner and Dune in there as well, but I think it's world building wise the best sci-fi we've gotten since those two films. And I'm really keen for more people to check it out. Lachlan, let's get to our main reviews of the week and talk about Theater Camp from Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman.
After the indomitable and beloved founder of the scrappy theatre camp in upstate New York falls into a coma, the eccentric staff must band together with her clueless crypto bro, in quotation, son, to keep the thespian paradise afloat.
Yes, that's Theater Camp. Runs 93 minutes. It's kind of a common theme that runs through the two comedies that we're talking about. I think one of them is 92, the other 93 minutes long. It's nice. What I prefer, especially a comedy movie, to not overstay its welcome. Looking at you, Judd Apatow. Yes, it's been getting pretty good reviews. A 3.8 on Letterboxd, a 7.2 on IMDb, and a 70 on Metacritic. It had a budget of $8 million and was produced by Searchlight Pictures. Has only grossed $4.5 million on the box office. That might be in part because it did release shortly after Barbenheimer dropped, and then they didn't take too much time to put it on streaming. I think it's available over on Hulu in the States right now. But yeah, we'll get into our thoughts on it, so go check it out. Well, because we are talking about comedies today, I think there's not a lot that you can spoil as far as the plot goes. So both of our reviews will be spoiler reviews. But Lachlan, what were your overall thoughts after you finished the movie? Was this a success when it comes to comedies, or was it something that didn't really work for you?
Well, as I said, there's a lot of comedies out there. Some are going to
Yeah.
work for you, some are not going to work for you. For me, this one worked to the
Mhm.
most part. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I
Mhm.
just prefer a style of comedy that takes an idea and then beats it to death and makes things go out of the extremes.
Yeah.
Making small children do dancing, acting, singing, and have it be as serious as if it was like a RuPaul's Drag Race episode was
Yeah.
super entertaining for me. So for me, I actually found the humor in this is quite good.
Yeah, I feel like it relies on a lot of just like quick cutaways, and the way that they assemble it is you can feel the improv actually on screen, right? Where it's just kind of
Yeah.
riffing, and it's in the documentary style, it's like faux film look that it has on like this fake documentary that's being made right as she goes into coma, and then they just kind of continue. I feel like some of the funniest moments are also just like the text in between that they add in context, especially towards the end. There's some gems in there, but it's also like jump cuts in the scenes, which I feel like there's funny moments, but they don't really work for me for the story overall. Which doesn't really matter if your comedy is if your comedy is really good, then it doesn't really matter if I'm like torn out of the suspension of disbelief in this movie. And I feel like it has a lot of really funny moments, so it kind of is held together by that. Would you agree, or how did you
It's
do
funny
you think about the?
because
Yeah.
I don't like some of the moments that feel like they're meant to be funny.
Yeah.
I just prefer the moments that just start to get more and more ridiculous, like
Yeah.
the fact that the kid was using chapstick to make
Yeah.
themselves cry.
Because tear sticks are doping for actors. Do you want to be the Lance Armstrong of theater?
No.
Get off the stick.
That was stupid, but it was actually
Yeah.
really funny because they take it seriously. So for me, the fact that it was a serious concept, that makes it funny because it makes the characters believe what they're doing is serious.
Yeah.
And this is why I prefer this more than Bottoms.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to, before we even get into Bottoms, like
Yeah.
I don't like Bottoms because the two main characters don't like the idea of what they're doing. They're not behind it. They're just doing it because
Right.
it's an idea. And sorry,
It makes
I
sense
explained that
in the
wrong.
teenage plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do know what you mean though. Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that in Bottoms, they don't like the Fight Club idea for that film. Before, sorry, I'm getting in the Bottoms already, but
It's a double feature.
It
Okay.
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. Like they don't think this is a great idea, and they don't get
Yeah.
behind it, so they're kind of iffy about it. And I get it's part of the story, but if they were to go into the wildness of what a Fight Club actually is, that would be more humorous to me. Now, I'm not saying that
Yeah,
film
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
funny to me. There are moments that are quite funny, but for me, I like theater camp because it's serious and it's funny. Like they're
Yeah.
taking everything. Like this film, if it's a comedy because every single character is in this world and it's like it's set in reality and they're taking it to this extreme extremity that is theater. So I loved it for that reason.
A really pointed question here, but in both movies we got Ayo Adebiri. Which character did you prefer, her lead or more of a like supporting role in theater camp here?
She was better in Bottoms.
All right, yeah, she got more to do. I think her character in theater camp, I was excited to see her in the cast and whatever, and then she's not really like she's part of the montage thing where they cut from class to class. She's not really in anything else substantial. And
Until the
some
end.
of the yeah, and some of her comedy bits are also like I don't know, the least inventive because she comes from a place where she's not a part of it. So her whole thing is like I don't understand. And I feel like we already got that covered through Jimmy Tadros Troy, who's just like so outside of it that like that's the comedic thing, and someone who's just kind of lost isn't really as funny in this context where like there's
Yeah.
the limitations to what that character can do. But did you have a favorite character?
The one that shares my last name?
Teely, Owen Teely, Gigi. Yeah. Was it the dance instructor?
No.
Or no, he's the fashion guy.
Yeah, he's the fashion guy.
Yeah.
No, my favorite character, like, I like the idea of, I mean, it eventually becomes, like, it starts off as Troy's story, but then it
Yeah.
becomes Amos and Rebecca Diane's story by the end of
Mhm.
it. So it's like the film kind of changes who the main character is. So
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, but I guess it's Glenn. Glenn's the winner.
I feel like his thing is not really like, there's hints of where he's going. And I like how it just kind of happens then, where it's not obviously like they're building towards it, but it's I don't know. It doesn't feel as fabricated at times. It feels a bit random. And that's what I like, to be a bit surprised. But there's a bunch of like really ridiculous moments, like where he rolls down the hill when at the beginning of Tech Week, where I'm like, I don't know, just strange. It's not really funny. But I guess that's what's happening on screen right now. There's a bunch of those moments, but I think like Troy, like Jimmy Tatro is just like he's just a very funny guy, and I like how unlikable Ben Platt as Amos is. He's just like this clueless guy who's obviously like not ready to do anything. Like actually, he's so afraid, and then he puts that pressure forward onto the kids, but he's not ready to face it himself. And I like that we never get to dive deeper into that. He doesn't need to process that. It's just who he is. And we don't get like an explanation of like, oh yeah, I gotta overcome this or whatever. So I like how, as over the top as these characters are, their struggles are still kinda real. And I think it's a hard thing to balance, and they do it quite successfully. And yeah. A really funny movie. I don't know if we got much else to add here other than the look and feel. Did you like the film look, or yeah, what did you think about
Oh
that?
no! Actually, I hated it.
Yeah, it was
really
a bit
pissed me
odd,
off.
right? It doesn't make sense, right?
Like it just felt like they were doing the film thing for the film thing. So
'Cause it looks cool.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was the first time I watched a film that was shot on film, and I was like, I hate the fact that this was shot on film.
I think it's very funny, especially if you have done any theater work. Although I was like more excited for it because I have done one musicals, which by the way I guess are called gay plays.
Gay
According to
plays.
this.
Quick question though, what's a straight play?
There are musicals and then there are straight plays.
So then what would be a gay play?
I guess a musical.
Oh, cool.
Glenn's delivery and a lot of the stuff is really his character, like just putting like a ladder and stuff in between them. It's so like it's so obvious what people what they're doing. Then they're not being sly about anything, but how direct they are is and how consistent that stays with these characters that are like these thespians. Yeah, I think that's just like it's gold. It's very funny. But yeah, all right. We have another movie to talk about, so let's get into our ratings for Theater Camp. So what are you giving it, Lachlan?
3.
A 3 out of 5. Wow.
3.
And he likes this one more than the other one. Oh god. Yeah, comedy is dead to Lachlan. No, it's not. But it's a 3.5
Comedy is
for
dead.
me. And you get the approval of someone who has been a lead in a musical once. So it's thespian approved. I'm thespian. Anyways, let's get to Bottoms, the second feature film from Emma Seligman.
PJ and Josie start a fight club as a way to lose their virginities to cheerleaders. The fight club gains traction, and soon the most popular girls in school are beating each other up in the name of self-defense. The pair find themselves in over their heads and in need of a way out before their plan is exposed.
Ooh, okay. 92 minutes as well, a short breeze to get through. Letterboxd is loving this film in all caps with a 4.2. Wow, that's a high rating for that film. On IMDb, it's a 7.4, and on Metacritic, it's higher than Theater Camp, a 77. Had a budget of 11.3 million. Put that in comparison to Emma's first film, which was Shiva Baby, that only cost her $200,000. It grossed $10.4 million before it hit VOD, so it will probably make its money back once it's there, but it's definitely not a resounding success for the film. It was produced by MGM and written by the director Emma Seligman and one of the lead actresses, Rachel Sennett. And this review will also be spoiler filled because it won't be fun to get into the crazy shenanigans of this story without spoiling it a bunch. So go give it a try. I know Lachlan is not gonna be as high on it as I am, but yeah, go give it a shot. Go give it a shot, and if you don't like it, go watch Shiva Baby. That's a solid movie all around. But Lachlan, why do you hate Bottoms?
I don't hate Bottoms. What are you on about?
So, sorry, this is an incredibly loaded question. But what are your thoughts on Bottoms? Let's start more neutral.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
the comedy just doesn't land for me. I didn't laugh at a lot of it, or I didn't smile at a lot of the humor. But I just didn't like it. You gonna roast me for not liking a film just
No,
because I
I'm
just
not.
didn't
I
find it
really
funny?
don't. I really don't care. I think.
I
think
actually
it's
thought,
fun.
funnily enough, I actually thought a lot of the cinematography and writing was good. I just
Yeah.
didn't find it funny. So as a comedy, it's not funny. But
So
I actually
I-
find a lot of this film really well made.
Yeah, Lachlan, I have to come clean about
I'm
this
gonna
as well.
defend my fucking position on this one.
I have
What?
to come clean. I agree with you on that part. I think the comedy is the weakest part of this movie. I feel like how ridiculous it is, the writing, the production design, even at parts the performances I quite like. I don't really like the improvised comedy style and how it's not really consistent with its world, where like it jumps in ridiculousness and then you got a moment between two characters where it's totally grounded, and none of the stuff feels connected. I still really liked it though. I can't, I don't know. I'm really forgiving this year with comedies. Maybe I'm just like in desperate need to get some. I think
So
I
what
had
you
a great
just
time
said
with it.
Was
Yeah.
what I was trying to say earlier, but I'm tired and I am not wording correctly today. There's my
You're
sentence
totally
that just came
fine.
out of
I
my
think
mouth.
everyone got what you were trying to go for.
What you said was perfect. This film goes from grounded reality to crazy, like, surreal, what the fuck is going on? Is this even
Yeah.
actually like a real thing that could happen? Back to reality, and then it ends on a absolutely wild run of ideas. And for
Yeah.
me, it's like, okay, I don't think it's funny,
Yeah.
but I think that where it was going is really good. But I just feel like the comedy side of it got pushed too far.
I mean, it's like when you look at it, it's ultimately a really generic plot overall. It's two people who try to get laid, and it's not really a journey for them. It feels kind of cut at parts where you're just trying to have like a ridiculous moment or falling out between the two, and you just like gawking at someone. They think it's hot. They think they're hot, and like they are. But it's also like, I don't know. I feel the whole premise of like them going, "Hey, we're the ugly, untalented lesbians," is, it doesn't really make sense if you have those two in the league, because they're obviously attractive. But I don't know. I didn't really mind it. I think I was expecting a bit more, and I'm still being a bit forgiving to it. But I think it's a bit overrated, at least on Letterboxd, but it does make sense that they are loving it as much because Ayo and Rachel have been like both really active on the side, and it's just like they've been in great stuff. And I think this is still good. I feel like there's a bunch of really funny one lines in this. Someone who does stand out, I think, is Jeff. I think that like joke that they run into the ground is actually like really funny. Like that they care that much about all of this. But yeah, anyone who stands out
Like-
to you? I see you got Michonne Lynch highlighted there.
I don't have anyone as a standout other than
Right.
Rachel and Ayo. I think they were
Yeah.
both brilliant. Ruby as well, Ruby Cruz as Hazel,
Yeah.
I also thought was okay. My issue with Hazel is that she is and the easiest way to put it is that quiet girl in that a cappella movie that came out many, many years ago.
Yeah, Pitch Perfect.
Where it's like Pitch Perfect, that's it. Where it's like the quiet one
Oh
right? The
yeah,
one you
yeah,
least
the
expect
Asian
is
girl
the
in that one.
crazy
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's the same with her, where she's like, "I'll build a bomb, I'll blow it
Bomb.
up." It's like, it's it's okay. Why a bomb? Is this? I
Yeah.
get that it's Fight Club and it's like
Yeah, yeah,
terrorism,
yeah.
and that's where it kind of leaks in. But like the fact that Fight Club, it goes into its reality. That's the thing about Fight
Yeah.
Club, is it's in its reality, and this film is trying to be a Fight Club without being Fight Club. And the thing
Yeah.
is, you can't do that. Just punching people is not a way of actually sorting stuff out. And they do make the joke where it's like, let's talk about our feelings, and that's how you're going to make us feel better than just punching each other.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that I get, but the
The
thing
transition
is, it
doesn't
then
really
goes into
work.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't flow perfectly between these different scenes,
Yeah.
and that's the issue I have with Bottoms. And it's like, again,
Yeah.
the taken in and out of reality. They're in a classroom having a conversation about this Fight Club, like, sorry, not Fight Club idea, but like they're having a, like, there's just when they've run him over, like the guy over at the start of the film, and then the principal does a page and says, "Can the ugly, untalented gays come to the office?" And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, is this film going to be extreme or is it not going to be extreme? Because this scene that I'm currently in is not extreme at all. And all of a sudden, the principal is calling students untalented, ugly gays, referring to
Yeah.
the main two characters. And then it's the over, like, sexual behaviors of the football team, of how they're just ridiculously horny. And
Yeah.
it's okay. So we're in a reality where they're horny, but there's this one guy who's actually like really smart and not just like the rest of them, and it's very confusing in where this film wants to be. And for me,
Yeah.
that's why I don't like it, because it doesn't buy into the whole idea. It should be harder into it.
Yeah, that one character just exists, so there can be an expose at one point. That's the only reason why he's different. And I feel like you do have a couple of those characters, and like one of them that's uh into like AO, the other one's not into PJ Rachel, and it's just so they got the main dynamic with Jeff. It's like obviously a lot of it is I would love to root for these characters, but they're not giving me anything to root for their story because it's so broken apart. And not even that they're like so unlikable. I feel like you could play with that quite in an interesting way. Because I don't feel like Superbad has been knocked in recent years quite a bunch, that it's like super like the male like hetero view in that of idealizing this whatever. I feel like it does that fairly well, where like someone is despicable and you look at him and you're kind of pitying him, or you feel like he comes off as kind of an asshole, and maybe like it doesn't really make sense in that reality where like they end up. But I feel like it's still a more cohesively put together film where you do have ridiculous moments like the cops, right, in there, or like I don't know, there's a bunch of moments that escalate the reality or the tension there without sacrificing the main journey that the characters are on. And here I really love these two actresses, and I couldn't really care for their journey, other than on a surface level, like, hey, that's great for you, you know. But I mean, look, I feel like where the movie holds up is you overall in these maybe not connected scenes, but you have kind of funny one-liners that made me laugh, that made me like stop the movie because I had to like, oh shit, that was actually really funny. And there's a whole bunch of them. Obviously, it doesn't really make sense to name them here because that kind of is not what comedy is supposed to be doing. But there's a bunch of stuff that I quite liked. I also liked the Charlie XCX like soundtrack part of it. The songs that they play, like Complicated by Avril Lavigne, or Total Eclipse of the Mind when Jeff attacks. It's like it's standalone moments, but within the story it doesn't really make sense, and I feel like that's what we are repeating here. So yeah, I would still recommend it. Especially if you like the two leads, I feel like you'll have a great time with it. But yeah, just don't go in expecting something formative or like something really new for a comedy. I feel like it's just like ridiculous humor. But yeah, I mean the ending was just batshit crazy, right?
Ridiculous. It was wild, and that flew like, to me that was the fun, the best part, because it was wild, and they kind of committed to the ridiculousness of it, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, we need to save him. Let's cause the distraction. Oh look, they've filled the water with pineapple juice. Oh,
Mhm.
look, we need to cause another distraction, do that bomb, kiss the girls, distract it. Like, it builds and builds, and it's like, cool, they're buying into the idea, but it does suck
Yeah.
that it's right at the end of the film.
Yeah, to me, it was strange that they kept bringing up juvie and that I actually killed someone and that would be into that. But by the end of that, I guess it kind of makes sense in this over the top universe where like this 50-year anniversary of the rivalry where like people get killed, which is also really random how that gets brought up. I feel like it's just like another
Mm.
tension point. But then you're just okay, I guess I'm in this reality where like violence is just like really there in every day and not just like in the way that the jocks behave like verbally and like I don't know, mental, not physical assault, but like in the other way around, especially like the way that the also the principal behaves and stuff like that. It's like okay, but they never really set up that universe because it starts
Yeah.
off at a fair where they're just like trying to hit on them and just they're just being really cringe and awkward. So I feel like the escalation should be a bit more you could like scale it up, but it just kind of goes up and down. Which is yeah, I feel like what's weakest about it, but I'm still really keen to see what Emma Seligman is doing next. Lachlan, what do you arrive at as a rating for Bottoms?
You're gonna love me.
Okay.
3.
If okay, well that's not okay. No, that's fine. I thought it was gonna be lower than Theater Camp. So you just preferred it just by a slight margin, Theater Camp
Yeah.
over this.
Even though Theater Camp was the funnier movie, I feel like the actual practical side of making it annoyed me, where it's the
Yeah.
complete opposite for Bottoms. So they are, and this is an understanding of comedy. It's like you need to lean into the comedy, and you still need to
Yeah.
back it with good filmmaking. Just because it's funny doesn't always mean it's a well-made film. Some of the best comedies are actually pretty well made. So
Yeah.
for me, if they could just come together, hey,
Look,
be
it's
perfect. So yeah,
it's
3.
weirdly enough similar to let me cook here, documentaries. Because you can have a really interesting documentary subject and a subpar movie to go alongside
See
it.
where you're
You
going
can
with it.
have a really great comedic center. You can have a great cast, but if it doesn't come together as a whole package, then it still is a bit lackluster, which is also what I feel with this. But I did give it a 4 out of 5. It's a really high rating. I'm way closer to a like 3.5 than a 4.5, but I'm just not ready to go under 4 for Emma here. But yeah, that's that. Lachlan, if you had to pair up this movie, these movies, this double feature with another double feature, doesn't need to be another 2 movies, by the way. It could just be one. What would you choose?
All right, so as I said, to make a good comedy, it's about leaning into the idea,
Yeah.
but also incredible filmmaking. And
Mhm.
there is a film that I think perfectly leans into its idea, and it's backed with some excellent filmmakers, and that's The Big Lebowski.
Oh, okay. Coen Brothers, right? We love to see
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
He's he's just the dude.
For a second, I thought you might like about to say Doctor Strangelove. I was like, no, he's not as pretentious as
Oh.
me.
Oh man, I should have said Doctor Strangelove.
Doctor
would've
Strangelove.
been
Well, you
really
can make it a
funny.
double feature, 2 of those. Look, enough from all of those bottoms, those bottom bitches. We want some guns, some masculinity, some warfare, some flying up in the air. So we are going with Top Gun, baby. You can even add Top Gun Maverick to this here solely for the pun of that it's called Top Gun and the other one's Bottoms. I don't know if you got that, but that was the joke that I made
Ugh.
for this double feature. Anyways, if you want to watch some new films out this week, you can go see Gareth Edwards, The Creator. I can recommend it. We'll be getting more into that next week with our spoiler review. There's also the 10th movie in the Saw franchise, going back a prequel to, I don't know, one of them. I don't know if it goes all the way back to the very start of it or somewhere in between. Jigsaw is alive, but that guy, John Kramer, has just been, he's unkillable. But he's back in Saw X or Saw 10. You can do whatever you want with that. Select your preferred naming for that. And there's also Paw Patrol the Mighty movie, which I think was what they were trying to do is do another like Barbenheimer thing with Saw, which obviously doesn't make any sense, but that movie also comes out on the same day as these other two films. But that brings us to the end of the show. Like I said, next week we'll be talking about The Creator, and I will be attending the Zurich Film Festival until the 8th of October. So if you are also attending, come say hi. And we will be back next week, though. We'll try to cram in a recording, but if it's not there, then that means that I probably just like was sleeping instead of recording this podcast. But in the meantime, you can support us by leaving a rating over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts, that's what it's called. And subscribing and leaving a like on YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Lachlan, do you have any parting words for the comedy lovers of the week?
Bye.
Bye!